so you can listen to it like a podcast. So it's like
what?
grade 12 biology. They will convert it into a play-by-play audio podcast for you so you can digest it easier. Isn't that nuts?
Why
With
are we even
two hosts?
Why are we even recording this? Why are we just doing that?
Hey, maybe this is that. Maybe we're
Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome to Artificial Breakdown. Today, Carrie and Pete talk to Nicola Pringle, Associate Creative Director at ZGM Modern Marketing Partners. Are you ready for this? Let's see what's up.
Okay, welcome to Artificial Breakdown. Today we're chatting with Nicola Pringle. She is the Associate Creative Director at ZGM Modern Marketing Partners, and we're very excited to have her on. For anybody who doesn't know, she is the one who designed the Artificial Breakdown logo. You're an Artificial Breakdown star.
I'm
yeah,
honored.
we're pretty proud of that. It looks great, I think. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a super fun AI project to get to work on. Absolutely.
Yeah, I forgot you used AI to design it, didn't you? Or some elements of it anyways.
Oh, yeah, had to. Definitely kicked off that process with exploring through AI and kind of just, trying to visualize ideas by using AI versus, the old pen and sketchpad traditional way of doing that. So it felt like, that's like a huge purpose of what this is about, is exploring AI. So it just seemed like the only path, really. And it's just so cool. It gives you so many different avenues to consider really quickly. Things you wouldn't have pictured yourself.
Yeah, that's for sure. We've seen some of the images that you created while brainstorming this logo, which we'll probably post a few of those to our socials. But some of them were like, my favorite is the two computer faces talking to each other. And I still want that sweater that she's wearing. If somebody could make that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think sometimes AI produces exactly what we're thinking of, and then sometimes it produces something that you could have never thought of. And I think that's just like the brilliance behind it, is it's going to give you things you recognize, and it's going to give you a new way of, combining elements and ideas and styles. And that's exactly what that was. That concept was like, I had an image in my head of what it should look like. And then it did give me, the two people with computer screen heads. That's what I was asking it for. And then it decorated it in a way that sort of made it feel familiar. It's just like, it's neat how AI works in a way that actually makes us feel more comfortable with it in certain ways. It shows us kind of a mirror, and that's a nice bridge, I think, between the human and tech side of AI.
Yeah, I wanted to dive into that, but maybe, Nicola, it might be good to chat, like back up a little bit, as far as you were one of the earlier adopters, I think, here in AI. So it might be good to talk about what was your first introduction to it, and even what you felt at the time and what kind of drew you into it.
Well, there's so many things we do in the art department here at ZGM in Photoshop. And I think that's probably the tool that has introduced all of us, like any creative person who's using the Adobe Creative Suite, has been using AI for a long, long time. And I think basically Photoshop has been the tool that has grown the most and kind of introduced everybody to sort of the basics of AI. And still to this day, we use it heavily for that. So like, the first things we would have been using it for would be image expansion, a clipping path. So cutting out something out of an image takes forever to do it really nicely. A person with hair, this, kind of not a simple hairdo, or, a tree with branches and leaves. There's just like many things that are painstaking to do manually. And so I think that's sort of the first introduction to AI, is all the improvements and efficiencies that Photoshop provides like that. But then I think Firefly and DALL-E, of ChatGPT and the whole OpenAI suite, we're just starting to we've been using it for a couple of years, these tools, but we're just starting to really see like the full potential. So I personally use DALL-E in ChatGPT and Firefly the most. Firefly is an Adobe app as well, and so that's really nice because it streamlines right into Photoshop when you want to kind of get into more detailed work. And then I think DALL-E is the one that gives you the most range of styles and expression and kind of is the best for concept work. So yeah, when it came to the artificial breakdown logo, I was kind of exploring in both areas within the Adobe Creative Suite. And then for those sort of concept images that are really fun and reflect back at us our own lives, that's DALL-E putting that together.
Do you find that it's better at having that sort of mirror?
I think so, yeah. I mean, there's certain things that it won't do. It's like a reflection of culture and society, and so kind of lots of things that we struggle with in our regular world, like representation and just sort of showing that range of what real people are like. It still sort of struggles with that. It's pulling from the most common things it sees, and it's still drawing from images of sort of typical looking humans, and so that's a sort of a specific challenge, but I think in so many ways it shows us who we are. That's a really neat thing about it.
Super weird.
Right? It's just collecting all of our data about us, and then it's like showing it to us.
Yeah, it's humbling. Do you find that it's changed a lot over the years, like as far as what you're getting out, the quality? Was it just trash at the beginning, or is it just kind of the same, just you're getting better at prompting?
Oh yeah, I think it's a bit of both, but for sure it's getting better and better. Like for images of people a year ago, you'd see 6 fingers or an extra arm in there. Every third person in the crowd would have a smushed face and be kind of strange looking. And it's doing less and less of that now. Like, I think it's harder and harder to tell what's real and what's AI. And it's just cleaner. It's creating cleaner images. So sort of just making less mistakes like that overall. Yeah, I mean, just yesterday when we were looking at the brand assets for artificial breakdown and kind of going through some of the pieces of it, you could see the improvements in the use of that tool. I think it was Firefly creating some images and just how clean the images of people were and how accurate. And that's something that for sure the first sort of year of everyone using AI for images and to recreate people, that's really, really changed. It's gotten a lot better, which is great and also kind of scary.
Also kind of scary. Yeah, and something that I've always found really interesting is people who maybe didn't want to use AI tools for design, like, well, it's really imperfect. But then the same thing could be said about a lot of human art, which is what gives human art that humanness, is that it is in fact imperfect. So I want to know, what do you think the difference is between an imperfect human created thing that we enjoy and an imperfect AI generated thing that we're like, freaks us out? But then also now we have this new era of perfect AI coming out, borderline perfect images every once in a while, and those are almost even weirder, but also great. I don't know. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah. I think it's such an interesting thing. I think we're sort of afraid of AI having the ability to create something so perfect or something that, involves an idea that feels so like an innately human attribute that now, a computer is spitting back out at us in a similar way and at, 10 times the speed. But I think that's part of the journey, is trust and sort of figuring out where we want that and where maybe steps on some toes or isn't the place to use AI and propel ourselves forward with that. Because I think the human touch is still always going to have value and trust. I think that's the biggest piece. It's like when it comes directly from a human. I mean, I guess that's not really true. Can't trust everybody, but skills, a little more grounded and real, because it is. And I think AI is, it's not supposed to be used for that kind of, it's not supposed to replace that part of life,
It's weird. I find it's almost like you take delight in finding mistakes in AI because it's a bit of a relief to some degree. It's like, that person's got 7 fingers. That's so funny, stupid AI. Because the opposite is like, otherwise everything's terrifying. It's like it's so good at so much of the stuff. And what do they call them, hallucinations or whatnot? Is that right? But it's like, it's like an eyeball on a set of stairs in the background or something, and you're just like, wow, that's so stupid. It's like a small tiny thing in this work of art that is produced in seconds. But I was curious a little bit around process. Where does AI fit in the grand scheme of building creative concepts? Is it more up front in the ideation phase? Is it more on helping you with the finishing side of things, or more on quick projects? More on projects that may or may not have a huge budget? I'm just curious, like, where does it slot in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I think the biggest way that I use AI, and I think it's probably the same for most of our artists in the agency, is to help show the idea. And so you might explore some different ideas or different sort of thought paths through AI to help move that idea process along. But I find the thing I use it for the most is to show a representation of the idea. And so I could never draw storyboards for a video idea as fast as AI can create those scenes. And same with like an illustrative concept or something that's just very visual. AI is going to give me a shortcut to showing what's inside my head. And what we would have done before is we'd done some sketches, and you kind of show, here's what I'm thinking of what you'll see inside of this image or concept, and here's what the words will be, and I sort of sketch it into a thumbnail, and then you would combine that with some reference images. It'd be kind of in this style, or this photographer's look and feel would be what we'd be going for. Now it's just like, let's just put that all together. I can show you that in one image or in a series of images for a video or whatever it is in no time. So I think, that's the biggest advantage and the most key piece of the process where we use AI for creativity in our agency. We do use it for like actual image use, like to create images we're going to use in a campaign, but I would say it's really rare that we would create something that we don't then customize quite a bit further ourselves. So even our logo for this podcast, that is quite AI inspired, and there's iterations of how it came to be its final graphic that were made by AI. But the final graphic is completely handmade, custom made, like by me sitting there, pushing the pixels around to get it just so. So it gets us to the end point quicker. It's a shortcut, but it's for sure not, we still need the human touch to get that finished product that we put together here.
Yeah, and that's so nice because then you're able to say, okay, I have this idea in my head, and you have a client who isn't going to decide what to do until they see something, but you don't have to put as much into just this like draft, basically. But a draft can blow a client's mind now because it's so much more realistic and so much closer to what it might actually end up being. But then you actually get your expertise to come in and finish the job.
Absolutely. Like we're always describing what the final product will be. And so AI just helps us to do that so much better. It's not going to be exactly what the thing is. And so we'll have caveats as we describe the idea as you're looking at the image. But man, does it ever give you a leg up on time. And, as most ad agency people know, we have to ride the waves as they come. And so we're quite often pressed for time. And it's just awesome. It's such a helpful tool to get us there.
Well, and what I really like about that too is that's something like, say you're going to be showing 3 concepts to a client, that's if you end up building out a full 3 concepts, the amount of time that takes, and you're only going to actually end up using one, it's so nice in that moment to use that on something that may or may not get created. So
exactly. Nothing is precious with AI, which is great. It allows us to iterate more and come up with ideas for longer, whereas we'd have to cut ourselves off sooner just to be able to put the presentation together before we've had this tool. Yeah.
I think that's a nice thought to think that it's actually helping us be more creative versus stifling it, because I think there's a lot of that sentiment going around where it's like, well, the true creators are becoming less valued because everyone can make stuff now, but there's still an idea behind everything, right? So I think that's a really nice thought for sure. Do you mind if I get super nerdy for a sec? There's something that I've been wanting to ask you, so I'm just going to ask you in the middle of the podcast. But when it comes to things like character development, I find it challenging because AI kind of redraws everything every time. And I think that's part of it, right? Like, it's really hard for me to hang on to, let's say, a look of someone specifically, like, oh, I like that, the way that person's looking. I want to put that person in a different scene and make like a series with that person. And I find it really hard to hold on to that, what it generated, because it keeps regenerating everything completely different almost every time, even though you give it the same parameters. Is this a thing? Or am I like way out to lunch, or is that a challenge right now?
No, I think that is a challenge. I think, it would be so great if, let's say you're putting together a storyboard for a video and you could say, create your first scene and you've got that looking good how you want. It's like, okay, now take this guy in the red shirt from this scene and have him walking down the highway, in a rural area or whatever. And it will bring some of the previous scene with it, or it'll put that rural landscape. If you say landscape, it probably put in a painting in the same scene you were just in or something. And it's
So
like, no,
literal.
do this. You give it another prompt. Yeah, you give it another prompt to sort of help get to what you want, and it sometimes just hits a dead end. And it'll just kind of keep spitting out the same image saying, hey, here's your revisions. Here's the edit you asked for. And it's like, no. So I'll often start a fresh thread with the AI program and, like you said, give it those prompts that gave you that character in the first place. I don't know. I haven't found a way to take a reference image of a human, like of a person, representation of a person, forward through a whole bunch of different scenes. And that is something that is a caveat when sharing storyboards with clients. It's like, you'll notice that we made these with AI, and our main character here has a slightly different wave in her hair here,
Now she has 7 fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or now we're painting. Like little things. It's like, we wouldn't change these things. These are just AI.
Yeah.
I've
had luck with Midjourney with that a little bit, because they have this image reference, which is actually a real pain to use right now, because it's not an easy thing to find. You have to do this /image ref or whatever, and then you have to have a URL to the image. So somehow you got to stick your image up on a site somewhere. But it did seem to kind of hold together pretty good, which was kind of cool. Those are the things that I think, like and I've seen it in Dolly, where there is kind of image references that you can pop in for style and some sort of like visual effects and whatnot, but it does seem pretty loose.
Yeah, you can throw in a reference image or a previous rendering to say, match the lighting in this one, or show as much of the scene as that one did. And it doesn't always work. Yeah, this is true.
So you're an illustrator too, and I really think, curious what you think about, maybe it's more the ethics side of AI. When you look at, like, okay, if I'm putting my own illustrations out into the world and someone's grabbing them and potentially making artwork using my style, like, how does that feel? Does that feel like an infringement? Does it feel flattering? Like, where do you sit there?
I think it's both. Like, it's definitely an infringement, and I think there's people who have pretty distinct styles and are very famous for them, and then they're being copied in so many ways. And that could be through DALL-E, a filter in DALL-E that just like that's that person's style. You can't type in a person's specific style, but you can describe it and get pretty close, because anything popular is going to, mirror back towards you when you're looking to create something that already exists. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a tough one because people are doing that without AI already. And so it's kind of hard to say where the fault lies. It's the human being that's choosing that. So I don't know. I don't know how to decide who to blame there. Like a human has to make the choice to steal that from you,
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is one thing if you see a card on a shelf that you're like, clearly that was somebody else's style that, whatever card company stole. But now you have hundreds and thousands and potentially, all these people that can do it. And they're all creating a really similar notebook to somebody else's notebook that they're now selling on Amazon or whatever the case may be. And it's the sheer amount that can be copied. Like you said, people are always going to steal people's ideas and work and styles. But yeah, it's a lot. This time around.
And AI makes it tricky because, it's not going to be exactly that person's style. There's going to be some variation. And so there are these like laws about what percentage of, likeness is legal when using other work as inspiration. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. Yeah.
What are you looking forward to? Are there things that you're hoping that will come out soon, or things you've heard in the grapevine as far as new features or tools that you're excited about, or where do you think this is all heading on your end? And are you excited about them, or are you like, oh my God, am I going to have a job in 5 years? Like, how are you feeling about the future here?
Yeah, I think we just have a wealth of resources. Like, it's just exciting. I know there's so many tools that I haven't even tried that I'd love to try. I haven't really dipped into the animation world in that way, but, even just within our apps that we already use, there's so many tools that I haven't used. But I think my general feeling is I love it. It's just great. I think it's like, AI, I don't think is ever going to be as good at the part of my job that I'm the best at. I think that's the thing about AI is like whatever you're the best at in your role, it's likely that AI isn't going to be better. But AI can help you get to that point of showing, if it's, let's say, ideation, it can help get to that point of showing the ideas and figuring out how to, put the visuals together. And I think that's what's so brilliant about it, that it's like an assistant, and it's like an unlimited, open-ended assistant in the way that we want to use it.
Yeah, I feel like we've heard that a lot, and we'll continue to hear that a lot. And I think that's one of the trending directions that AI is going in the workplace, is people using it as an assistant. It's certainly not a replacement, but it's definitely there to help you along a bit faster.
Yeah, and just do that exploring part, that iteration part that, you really want the time for. It's just such a time saver in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned how like Photoshop was kind of the gateway drug, and some of these things, like I think it was like content-aware fill was kind of the beginning of this, where there was like, oh yeah, you can erase stuff and it will figure out what's behind it. Like the stuff's been dribbling in slowly, and everyone thinks it's great until like a critical amount comes in, and then suddenly it's like scary. But we've been kind of working with this all along. Some people say autocorrect was the beginning of AI, but whatever it is. But it's just, it feels like if this was spoon-fed out a little bit slower, it'd be like that frog in the boiling water. No one really noticed too long. But we just suddenly got a whole glut of it all at once. Like suddenly ChatGPT opened up everything for everybody instantly, and it's like this massive tool that just became commercially ready so quickly. I think that scared people all at once, but if that had maybe come out slower, I wonder if it would have been less of a big deal and people had adapted like at their own pace.
Yeah, and I wonder who is really afraid of it, who doesn't trust it, if it is people who use it or if it's people who don't use it and they don't really know, the extent of what it offers and its limitations too.
Yeah, I think we've been saying this all along. If you're worried about it, then just start using it, because it's the anxiety around what you don't know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I think, why the future of it is scary, because we don't know. And it does seem to be moving so fast. It's like, at some point, is it going to move beyond us? I don't know. I think that unknown is like the scary part. But right now, it feels like we've just like burst into this awesome world of accessibility to speed up so many of the things we do on the daily. So it's just like, it's like when the internet arrived, just like, holy crap, this is amazing. You can see everything. Like, it's just, it kind of feels like that. It's like, oh, this is going to be just huge. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you think like ChatGPT was launched in 2022, I'm pretty sure. And
no way. Really? It's only been that long?
It hasn't been that, like, but the exponential growth that it's had. But it's like, and technology, and Peter and I have talked about this before, but technology grows at more and more of it at like exponential rate. It's like, what? That's been 2 years. What's going to happen in 2 more years? Like, and then 2 years after that, 2 years after that. And it's pretty, like, you just can't, I don't think our tiny little, pea human brains can comprehend it. It's not within our comprehension. We're not meant to be processing this much information at a time, but yet we're given these tools and we're like, yeah, let's fuck shit up.
Yeah. And the whole goal is just like, let's keep making them better, let's keep making them smarter, let's keep making them do things faster. And it's like, what's the goal?
Yeah, what's the actual goal? Like, if it's just good, can we just stop when it's good? Do we have to keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly feels like there's potential for some of those movies about AI to eventually come true. The scary ones.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go see, there's a horror movie that came out recently about AI. I haven't seen it yet, but Peter and I were talking about going to see The Wild Robot instead.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch that.
Yes.
Yeah. It does make Terminator, you look at Terminator in a whole new light. I'm like, oh, I hope that's not a documentary. Like, yeah.
It's funny how long ago in like pop culture that started. Like, it's almost like the second machinery existed, it was like, this could come take over. Like, I'm sure there's ones about like steam engines coming and taking over. Like, there's things. Oh, what's that one? The Brave Little Toaster.
What?
The Brave Little Toaster. That was a kid's movie when I was growing up, and it was all these things that were very like humanoid. I don't think they were taking over, to be fair. They were just being cute, but I feel like humans have always been kind of afraid of that.
So many predictions came true, but the one thing that they haven't got is flying cars and jetpacks. Like, they've been calling those out since day one, and here we are. I traded my iPad for a jetpack.
Yeah, we want the Back to the Future scene to come true. Come on.
Yeah, hoverboards. Yeah.
Where's my hoverboard?
Okay, a hoverboard would be sick.
I just saw there was and I knew you cut this out. I knew this isn't really what it's like or what it's about, but the Nobel Prizes were being handed out recently. And did you hear what the godfather of AI had to say? It was like a warning. It was like warning the world that it's going to develop fast and will basically promising us that it will go beyond human intellect and ability in a lot of areas, and that we should make sure we're paying attention and keeping up.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
So,
yeah, I think because everything we're talking about right now is kind of like the generative AI stuff, and it's still pretty much like all controlled by humans. But the second they get into like bots teaching bots and exponentially getting out of control, then that's where it's like, holy fuck, like, I don't know what the answer is there. It's just like, hang on to your socks and hope you still have any job, even if it's going to be like mining for silicone.
Right. So many things will be
it.
machine driven. The machine learning will be like exponentially quicker than human learning of these things. And then, yeah, I mean, that's happening already, but it has to happen on a much larger scale, it feels like it should.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not the only person to be giving out warnings recently either. There's a couple people who have been saying, like people who work in the creation of AI are, they've got bunker houses that they're ready to go to with their families. And it's like
it's a powerful tool, and so it depends on whose hands it gets into. I think that's for sure kind of a big piece of it is, like the deep fakes that are out on the internet, and, how politics can use AI to influence, and that part is like, it's like powerful tool could get into the wrong hands. It's like a Marvel movie.
Yeah, that's life, baby. You gotta live on the edge.
Yeah, and I also think too it's great link bait right now too to say that the Earth is ending. So I imagine some of these are maybe that's driving some of them. But if you're actually going through the motions of building out a bunker, then that feels more than that. So that's somewhat terrifying. Okay, well, on that note.
Yeah.
But that's why you need to listen to our podcast to stay on top of it all.
Yeah,
keep up, be ready.
Yeah, yes, totally. Bunker diagrams are in the show notes. Nicola, thanks for coming on. That was super cool of you. It's great to hear from you because, again, you've been kind of one of the designers who started this in kind of day one, or at least certainly feels that way at ZGM. So, really appreciate your thoughts on this.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a really interesting subject, so always happy to chat about it.
Great. We'll have you on next season again to see what level we're at of bunkers and or Photoshop.
Maybe I could get a mic that works and better lighting.
That is the dream. We'll have self-aware robots, but we'll still be working on microphones.
Yeah. Muting and unmuting. Hard. Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks, Nicola.
Team. See ya.
Bye.
Nicola, you have to leave. I'd like to talk about whose guest that was. I feel like she's my guest. But
I didn't
she
know
feels
we were
more
keeping
aligned.
tabs.
Yeah, I am. She
Fair.
could be a 50-50, I guess.
That's fine. That's fine. I think I have some gold coming up. But yeah, she was great. Like, so I think there's so much around the visual side that's creeping up so fast, and it's exciting to hear how artists and graphic artists are reacting to this stuff. So it was great to get her perspective.
Mm-hmm. And I really like that idea of AI's not the one coming up with the idea. AI's not the one giving you a finished product, but it's in the mix in between those two things, and it helps us along the way. Nicola's brilliant, and she comes up with really great ideas, and she then uses AI to help her through the process to eventually create something amazing. I just love that genius, that human genius is still there.
I remember thinking this a long time ago. I always thought it was almost elitist to think that, okay, only people who can draw or write are creative, right? Like everyone's creative, and a lot of people just have different ways of expressing it. But I think of other people in my life who are, just don't consider themselves creative because they can't put an illustration together. But they are. Everyone has creative ways of thinking, and I feel like in some ways AI takes a bit of that elitism out of the equation, if you know what I mean. It's similar to programmers. Like, again, nothing but respect for programmers, but if I have a great idea for a product, well, now I can build it in some ways, right? Or I can draw it, or I can write it, and if it's still a good idea, it's just I didn't have the skill sets to do the production on it or the finishing side. So it's just an interesting way to look at creativity, I think.
Yeah, which is a funny, intersect back to ZGM with this idea that, like, we don't call our creative, quote unquote, department, we call it storytelling, which I like because we're not the creative department. Every department is creative in their own way. Strategy is creative. You know, all these accounts people are creative in their own ways. And I totally agree. It's like, it allows you to take your creativity and just show it in different ways that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
Which is why I like Dolly as a writer. I can go in and ask it to make something that I wouldn't have been able to create.
That's why I like the text ones, because they just write for me, because I have the writing skills of a maybe 4-year-old.
4-year-old. There it is in action.
Thankfully, I've written my name long enough now that I don't misspell it, but I misspell pretty much everything I write. Have you heard of this? I saw this the other day, where you can take any subject as long as it's written out, and AI will generate a podcast for you. So you can listen to it like a podcast. So it's like
what?
grade 12 biology. They will convert it into a play-by-play audio podcast for you, so you can digest it easier. Isn't that nuts?
Why
With
are we even
two hosts?
Why are we even recording this? Why aren't we just doing that?
Hey, maybe this is that. Maybe we're
dun dun dun. The conspiracy theory continues. Are Carrie and Peter?
Yeah,
bots?
I would like to think AI is better than this, because this is I don't know. But yeah, isn't that nuts?
Wow, that's pretty cool though, because again, that's something to do with, like, you know, everybody has these different types of learning. Like there's visual learners and audio learners, and I don't know the proper terminology for it all, but you know, imagine you're given something and you're struggling to learn it. Get AI to turn it into something else.
Totally.
How accessible is that?
Yeah, convert, like even just putting it into an audio file is just great. But I love the thought of just like putting it into a conversation. Maybe you latch onto a conversation better than you would just basically a speech, which is what most textbooks would be if you transcribe them into audio. But yeah, I think it's really cool. Sort of highly threatening, really cool.
That's how people describe me. That's so funny. Well, on that note,
okay.
Great guest.
I think we're done.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Yep. Bye.
That's a wrap for today's breakdown. If you have any thoughts or questions, drop us a comment or message us on social media. If you enjoyed today's chat, why not subscribe so you don't miss another episode? Thanks for tuning in. Stay charged out there.